Well, first of all, welcome to Cybersecurity 101 with Joe and Larry and Simeon and Greg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me
here.
Yeah, Larry and I have been talking about this episode, and we're so excited to just hear your stories, and especially the what you all have created with KC7. But let's dive into background a little bit. Simeon, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, background, and then we'll switch over to Greg.
Yeah, Simeon Kakpovi here. I work in my day-to-day job as a cyber threat intelligence analyst. So I used to do nation state adversary tracking. Now I focus more on cybercrime. But my background, I was born in Benin in West Africa. So I moved here with my family when I was about 8, and I grew up in the Maryland area, and I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. So that's what I had in mind going to college. And then at a certain point, I looked in the mirror and I was like, all right, can I stand to spend 8 hours a day in a hospital? And I said, nope, that's not going to work. And so what happened to me was I ended up doing a cybersecurity competition that Lockheed ran when I was a sophomore in college. And so what they did back then was they took an entire cybersecurity intrusion and they scrubbed out like all the PII and they just let people work on it. And so the funny story behind this is what they advertised it as a case study, right? So I was a business major in college. And I said, you know what, I could do a case study. You write up some slides, you present, it's all good. And then they mail us a physical flash drive. And my professor comes up to me and she's like, this is yours. And I'm like, what? Couldn't they just email that? In what world do they have to physically mail something? And it was 80 gigabytes of data from they had like PCAP files in there and memory dumps and all types of stuff. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I struggled through that. I figured it out. And after that, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I would love to do this for a long time. So the rest was history. I mean, I did internships with Lockheed after that, and then I started working for a major tech company, and yeah, I love it ever since. And people say like people have different feelings about their job. I love what I do, and I love it so much that I try to spend time helping people get to do the same thing.
I definitely want to come back to tracking, nation state threat actors. I think that's a fascinating topic. But Greg, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. So I live in Lexington, Kentucky. Grew up not too far from here in a little town called Berea. And I've always kind of been a nerd. I knew since I was pretty young that I wanted to do something in tech. I worked in the high school's IT department in the summers in high school. And then I went to college and studied computer engineering. And so for all intents and purposes, I thought I was going to go into software engineering. And while I was in college, I had an opportunity to do an internship. And I'm like, awesome. What am I going to be working on? And they're like, well, you'll find out when you get here. And so I showed up on day one and they said, you're going to do cybersecurity. You're going to do cloud detections engineering. I'm like, that sounds cool. I know absolutely nothing about that, but I'm ready to learn. And so this was summer after my junior year or sophomore year of college. Spent 12 weeks working in cyber and I really fell in love with it. It was something that was like not at all on my roadmap. Like I said, I knew nothing about it. I had no idea what it was going to be like. And yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. And so I had an opportunity to come back the following summer and intern with the team that I'm on now as a threat intel analyst. And that really just sold the deal for me. I was like, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
I was looking at your LinkedIn background. It looks like you've been doing that for, is it almost 4 years next month?
4 years full time next month. Yeah.
Time flies, right? Now, how did the two of you meet? Was it on that team?
Yeah, so we work on the same team.
Okay.
I was in the office. I work remotely, so I happened to go into the office. And actually, Simeon and I had worked together before we were on the same team. We had gotten introduced to each other through a coworker of mine, and then I saw on Twitter that he was joining our team, and I was like, "Whoa, Simeon's cool. That's awesome."
Well, I don't know how much you guys know about our show or Larry and his background, but Larry, would you mind maybe just introducing yourself some of your interesting background and the different jobs you got. I think it's the coolest story, and why you wanted to get into cyber. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I got a long history, but actually, I lived over in Europe for 20 years. So I played basketball and football over there.
That's so
So
cool.
then I got into coaching. So I coached both sports, and then I happened to dabble in a little music too. So I was pretty successful at that, and I got pretty successful as a coach over there. I was actually invited, I think it was 2007, as an international coach to the Oakland Raiders.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it's been I've done quite a few things, but the biggest thing I've done was my cousin. He was the head of cybersecurity at the U.S. Treasury Department. So that's how I actually started like gaining interest into it. And then I moved to California, and then at a men's Bible study, I met Joe, and
Wow.
then it just went from there. And then I literally just graduated school. I just got my associate degree as a cybersecurity engineer, and
Wow. Congratulations.
yeah, and network administration. Yeah, so actually, I just got that I think in December. I've been working for Patriot part time for a year, and now full time for about a little over a month. So
Yeah.
as a
Awesome.
SOC 1. So
That's
I
amazing.
wanted to start off from I told Joe I wanted to start off from the beginning, so I know everything, so when
Yeah.
you get to the bigger areas. Yeah, so I want to learn from the ground up.
Our our mutual missions are so similar. The mission of this podcast is, when Larry approached me at the Bible study and he said, "Hey, you said you work in cyber. I've always wanted to get into that." And I said, let's see what we can do. Let's talk about it. And
Yeah.
so we decided to record our conversations for his journey, because I figured there's a lot of people like him that want to get into this. I had no
Totally.
idea it would take as long as it did. I at the time didn't really appreciate the kind of obstacles Larry would have to, deal with and confront and everything. And so this show is really on a similar mission from what you guys are on too. So I definitely want to get into KC7 and everything. But there's so many there's so many different avenues we could kind of take this conversation. But I heard about Simeon and KC7 through a mutual friend, Vishal. March 15th, I get this text message. He's like, "Joe, you gotta go check out the site. Tell me what you think." So I'm like, "Okay, cool, Vishal." So I go and look at it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting. This is, gamified cyber, learning KQL." So I start checking it out, and I get addicted right away. Like I can't stop playing, and I'm having fun. I was not fluent in KQL before this game, and I look forward to it. I enjoy getting on there, and it's sharpening my skills. We run a SOC at our company, and I'm kind of chief geek. I love getting in there. And
Yeah.
recently I've been able to kind of go to our threat hunters and stuff and help them optimize stuff because of
Yeah.
the exposure that this game has helped me with. So now I'm like mandating. I'm like, everyone, we have to compete. I want to see you on there. I want to see your score because I know it's going to level them up, right?
Yeah.
And so this has been huge for Patriot. We decided to sponsor KC7 and really get behind you. But let's get into KC7. So
Yeah.
Simeon, I understand this was your idea. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was saying, the way I got in was I played this cybersecurity game and I realized that I loved it, right? But when I had that experience, and it was a really powerful one for me because it allowed me to really understand what cyber was about. I realized that for like 99% of people, you're not going to have that, right? Because they only had it for about like 50 students, right? And even so, like within that 50 students, there were 4 Black people there, and it was like me and my like 3 coworkers. So I was noticing 2 things. One, like getting experience like this can like literally change the trajectory of your life, which it did for me. And 2, like we still have a diversity problem. And so I thought to myself, for so much, one day I'm gonna have to figure out how I can take this opportunity that made a difference for me and like bring it to other people. Because if you could multiply that, right, and take the rules away and take all the restrictions away from that, then so many people would have a chance. And I truly believe, right, like Greg and I always say, like, it's just about giving people a fair chance. And if you give people a fair chance, you're gonna see some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So I started working on this with a professor. And like the first version of this was just literally me typing out like the data. And then he kept asking for more. I went to Howard University in HBCU. And I met a professor there, Professor Henley, who was like a big mentor of mine, and who then transitioned onto a community college. So he would run it with the students, and he would keep asking me for another version. I got sick of it, so I started like coding it out. And so then I had this like crappy version, and it got ran a couple times. And in my head, I was like, all right, maybe eventually we could have one hackathon, and that'd be like the big thing. And so it was kind of in my mind for years. And I came up to Greg one day, and I was like, so Greg said, you know, he would come to the office from Kentucky, and I came up to Greg, and I was like, hey, yo, like I have this idea, and you know, it's not perfect, but with your help, right? If we worked on it, tweaked on it a little bit, like it could be something. And maybe I'll let Greg take it away from this point and see like tell the story from his perspective there.
Okay.
Yeah. So Simeon came over to my desk and was like, hey, I want to tell you a little bit about this thing I've been working on and like what I think it could be. So he tells me, you know, how he's been like manually generating data. And he says, I want to build something that can just simulate intrusions like on the fly, that's hyper realistic, that people can use for that same sort of experience he had with the cyber challenge. And my first thought was like, you're insane, right? That ain't gonna happen. But I looked at what he had and we talked about it a little more, and I was like, okay, you might be insane, but I think you're onto something here. Like I really think this is something that's feasible, and most importantly, this is something that people really need, right? Because there's only so many internships, there's only so many mentors. But if we could create this scalable platform that gives you like the same kind of experience you would get on the job, that could change the game, especially for those people who really don't have access to internships and to mentors with a lot of experience. And so, yeah, I mean, the rest was history. We started spending all our evenings and weekends and many hours of sweat and tears. And
so I thought what would be kind of cool is if I share my screen and we actually take our guests through the journey of kind of getting into this, and it'd just be kind of fun, you know, to do that, and then we'll kind of pivot back to the conversation. So I'm going to take over screen sharing.
That would be awesome.
And just kind of dig into it. Okay. So here you go. You go to KC7cyber.com. You click play now, you know, you'll sign up for an account. I'm already kind of signed in here. And you go to all the different modules and you can get started. Now, this is a new one, pretty fun, just came out. I actually completed this one here, so I'd recommend starting here. But you eventually kind of, you know, you start off with the easy modules. You can work your way up to moderate. I'm currently kind of working my way up through challenging. I wanted to start bottom up, and I'm one of those gamers where I have to do the whole thing. I can't skip a level. I can't skip a question. I just can't do it. I have to do the whole thing. So I'm on a journey. And so anyway, I can't wait till I get to the one that says don't bother. I am like, so I want to go in there and just look, right? But you have to get through certain prerequisites. You're unlocked at level 18. So that's pretty cool, because then you don't get intimidated, do the wrong one. So this is kind of high level overview. So I'm going to jump into, I'm going to pick one here, the Diewalk food. So I just started this one. I don't have any questions answered. So the first thing is it's going to ask us just kind of a starter question here. So, you know, it just wants you to get used to the interface. So I'm going to say, okay, done. The next question here is, how many employees work at the company? Now, to answer this, you have to click on the query data. So it brings up Azure Data Explorer, brings us into this database. And again, go back to the question. What was the question? How many employees work? Now, what I've done, this is kind of my style here, is I like to go in here and I like to put in question one, this. Now, the reason I do that is because later on, there could be something referring back to a question. And I like to kind of have this like log. So this kind of becomes my notepad. And professionally, sometimes I reference back to various kind of, syntax I've learned or different things, because it's challenging. Sometimes you have to use regular expressions and different kind of things. So to answer this question here, I'm going to get the employees table, and maybe I'll just, do a count, right? So how many employees, count. Okay, the answer is this 1111. So I go to copy, go back, paste, and hopefully I get it right. Okay, boom, got it right. Go on to the next one, So
And
you just
Joe,
kind of go through this.
I'll
Yeah,
step
go
in
ahead.
for a second. I'll give you a cheat code. There's another really good reason why it's so important to put your question in there, and not just your question, but your thought process around like why, how, and why you're answering the questions. When you run these queries, you actually have the ability to go back in your history and look at all the commands you ran. And so if you actually like tack on your question to the query, so like remove that space on line 2 and tack on your and tack on the entire thing as one fell swoop, and then run that again. If you add context to your query, right? If it's all one, so try removing a space and like put your comment and your query as one thing. Yeah, so now it's all considered one thing. And so if you run it, your comment is actually going to be part of the query. So click on there, run it. There we go. So a thing you can do is you can use the .show queries command to actually bring up all your previous queries. You have to put a space before you run it, but .show space queries. This is a cool trick that changes the game for everyone.
Oh, what? This is
So
crazy.
erase the space after the period.
Oh,
Actually, it's worked. So now you have all your queries of past,
no
and
way.
if you put a comment in there, then your comment is going to be a part of your query. So you can like right-click your queries on top of this to say like, show me all the queries that I've mentioned this before. So you can have the entire investigation essentially like within queries, within your query history, if that's something that you wanted to do.
Oh, that's epic. Well, thank you for showing me that. I was selfishly hoping something like that would actually happen on the show, because I wanted to I was just kind of hoping that would happen. So thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, so that kind of just shows, it's easy to get into, and there's little kind of tips and ways to learn on the side. So I just kind of jumped right in. But someone doing it for the first time, they're going to kind of work up to that. But I love it. It's really helped us. But share with us the current reach. Like, where is this at now in terms of like number of users? What are you doing to expand the reach, and what is your like vision for where this goes?
Yeah, so currently at the beginning of the year, we're about 3,500 users. Currently, we're about 9,200 registered users. So we're growing fast, and we're trying to focus on marketing in the next coming months to get to as many people as we can. And we're doing that through building partnerships, and specifically partnerships with the organizations that reach the people that we want to reach, right? Okay. So you talk about Blacks in cybersecurity, women in cloud, all these like diversity organizations that are reaching people who may not have had a chance, may not know that cybersecurity was something that they wanted to do, or have an idea about cybersecurity, but don't know like where to start. And then we're also trying to do broad marketing and position cybersecurity as something that anybody can do. When we talk about like the people we want to reach, we reach a big part of what we do is reach folks who are trying to transition careers. But we also focus on like K through 12 and K through 12 and college students. And we actually did a camp before for 5th through 8th graders, and we're doing it again this summer. And that's Greg's special baby, so I'll let him talk a little bit more about KC7 Camp.
Yes, this is actually coming up here. It's in Lexington here in coming up soon, like 3 weeks. So I want you to imagine you have 4th through 7th graders who know absolutely nothing about not just cyber, but like tech in general, right? Other than like maybe TikTok or whatever they're doing on their iPads. Like they have no experience. After 5 days, we had them sitting in a conference room in front of a panel of professionals briefing us on a ransomware attack. Wow. And like how they found it, who they attributed it to, and like what steps they could take to mitigate it.
Interesting.
And so you might wonder, like, how the heck is that possible? And basically what we did is just an extension of what we've done in the platform, right? Like, we made cyber fun. We basically made a week-long game where the students are learning and doing cybersecurity analysis, and, like, honestly, in a very realistic setting. They were like in teams with a CFO and an investigator and a case manager, and all this was happening, and they just felt like they were playing a game.
Wow.
And that was really the magic to it, right? Like, they bought in so quickly because it was fun, and it was just, they were like, I'm here, I'm having a good time, I'm doing something cool with my friends, and that's what we were able to accomplish.
Imagine all the educators and parents, listening to this, wanting to know, how do I get this in my school, in my community? How would they reach out to you? What's the steps?
Yeah, so scaling and, like, reaching more people is a huge part of what we're trying to focus on right now. So for this second camp, to be honest, like, a huge part of the story with last year's camp is that we planned for 2 months, because you can imagine, right? We've mostly worked with high school students and college students and professionals up to this point. So based on that experience, we're like, okay, we got this. We planned for like 2 months for this camp, and then we show up, and within the first 15 minutes, not exaggerating, it was within the first 15 minutes, we're like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. So we were inventing camp as we were having camp. We stayed up. We would get home at 4 o'clock from camp. We would, like, rest for 15 minutes, get something to eat, and then we'd work till 2 a.m. and build the next day's content.
Wow. Okay.
And so this year we have a little more time to prepare. We kind of know what we're getting into. And so we're going to be packaging all this camp material, all the lessons we've learned, all the methodology, all the exercises, and we're going to make sure that that's accessible to other people. So even if we can't come and run a camp in your community, we'll have the resources that you would need to run one yourself.
All right. I've got a couple of questions. Larry, I know you have questions. I am amazed at the data set that you guys generate for these modules. It is unreal. It is so realistic. How do you do that? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I think the magic behind it is that we take a completely different approach. So when most people think about generating data, they'll, like, set up the infrastructure, they'll, like, red team, and then they'll capture the logs.
Right.
The magic behind it is that I was not smart enough to red team, and I was too broke to set up any infrastructure, and I had no idea how to set up any infrastructure. So I said, you know what? I know what the logs are supposed to look like, so I'm just gonna fake it till I make it, right? And so we just created, like, a very the first version of it was just, like, a very, like, bad imitation, and then over time, the engine that creates the logs got better. But that means that we can iterate, and we don't have to start from scratch every single time. And so today what we have is we have an engine that, like, knows how to generate logs, and you can use a ChatGPT bot to define your intrusion. So literally the way it works is, and maybe we can actually even do it live. Would you care to do it live?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, Greg, maybe you can talk through it while I pull up the bot, and I can actually show you how I actually do it.
And so, Greg, I have a question for you while he's pulling that up. What is your role in KC7? I know you participated in that camp and everything, but what does a day-to-day kind of look like for you for KC7?
Yeah, I mean, we're a small team. It's volunteer part-time for all of us. So there's, like, everyone kind of does a little bit of everything. I do some dev work on the engine and the website. I am trying to build the partnerships with those school districts and some of the organizations that are most valuable to our mission. Trying to figure out, we have a lot of people who want to help. We have quite a few volunteers, some, like, really skilled, really capable volunteers. So spend some time thinking about, like, how do we make use of these people and, keep them busy and make them feel like they're meaningfully contributing to the mission. So lots of things to do. We're not, well, Simeon has a business degree. I don't have a business degree. But turns out starting a nonprofit is really hard, and there's, like, a lot of stuff to learn. So we've learned a lot. We're still learning.
The decision to make it nonprofit is incredible. It's nice for corporations like us, where we can get a nice tax write-off when we donate. So appreciate that. But it really kind of just signals that you're not in this for the money, and that's that's a pretty big deal, that you really do care about people, you know.
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel
But it's-
about KC7,
yeah.
where it's at now, and how will it grow and develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the beginning, when we were starting about 2 years ago, when we thought it was going to be a thing, I said our goal was to be at every school and university across the world. Whenever anyone wants to learn cybersecurity, this is the way to do it. Because for Greg and I, you know, the KC, even before KC7, right, that type of experience, like getting your hands on data, it just makes sense, right? And so we're like, all right, if there's this way to learn security that, you know, doesn't require you to like learn IT stuff for like 5 years and then eventually get into cyber, where you can get in on day one and just enjoy it and love it and like genuinely want to learn more, I think that's what everyone should be doing. So our goal is honestly to like get it as far wide as possible, and more so get it to the people who otherwise would not have that opportunity or may not even realize that cyber is for them. We have a story, right? Larry, I love your story because there's someone on our team. His name is Jibby. He actually makes all our newer modules, and his story is like very similar to yours, Larry. And it's a very inspiring story that we always tell. Before I tell that story, though, I'll share. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Awesome. So this is the bot that we're using. We've trained it to actually make the configs. So actually, I'm going to allow you, Larry, to like tell me what kind of, the first thing you have to do is tell it what kind of company you're attacking. So Larry, I want you to tell me, what kind of company do you want to attack today?
Let's attack healthcare, because I work with,
All right.
we got a client healthcare, so.
So I want to make a company config your company. And so we used to do this manually, but the AI does it for us now, all right? So we've taught it to like give us all the details for like the healthcare company, right? So it's giving us a CEO, a chief medical officer, a chief operations officer, and you recognize the employees table from the game, right? All of these are going to go get plugged into that. A fun thing we always do is we usually will have like cameos. So we'll usually like put ourselves in as like employees. Sometimes we'll mention it, sometimes we won't mention it. But if you go back and look in all the employees tables, like usually we're mentioned somewhere. So this gets translated right into like the company that's going to get attacked by the threat actor. All right, that's part one. Part two is we're going to have the actors that attack the company. So Joe, I'll let you choose. What kind of threat actor would you like to attack this healthcare company?
So we may or may not have time to get into it, but Larry dealt with one very recently. I think last Friday. Larry, do you want to mention who you think the threat actor was?
Yeah. So actually, we dealt with one of these. I think it was last week. It was healthcare actually, and the threat actor was from they were from Russia, but they had a VPN. So the VPN actually stated that they were here in the U.S. I was able to find them through the ISP that stated that they were in Russia.
Yeah.
So then that's why all the alarms came up. But
yeah, so
they had a malice IP. So what they did, they created an email from the company's customer that looked just, so when they clicked on it, they didn't really get in, they didn't really get in there and do damages or anything, because we got on it right away. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't even fooled, I mean, it was so good it would have fooled anyone.
So it pretended to be a customer, or it was actually using a customer's account, like a supply chain thing.
Like a supply chain. Yeah.
Interesting. Awesome.
We're
gonna create it.
actually created. We're actually created. I think it created a rule too that they had to take away. So yeah, it was pretty.
So we're gonna make an actor config for Russian threat actor that uses an email phishing campaign with I can't spell, with a supply chain twist.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Now, can you add additional details like where the threat actor tried to conceal their location by using a VPN from inside the US?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that. I think we'd have to like configure it. I think usually you do these little tweaks after you've generated the configs.
Got it. Yeah, because
to
the
make sure it looks
residential
right.
VPN thing is kind of a big problem right now, right? But yeah, let's
Yeah.
go with that. Okay, cool.
And it's a destructive actor maybe, or is it like a espionage actor? Are they trying to like steal data? Or are they trying to like destroy things, or you don't really know?
It seemed like it's either ransomware was the goal, potentially just causing mayhem in the US as
Yeah.
well.
So we're gonna make it a ransomware actor just for example here. So a Russian threat actor, it's gonna call it Dark Bear.
Wow.
A cool thing we do, and we've not done the best job of stating this, but all our data sets follow, all the actors and the employees follow a pattern of life. So you think about like, for nation state threat actors, right? They work a 9 to 5, but in a different time zone. And so, you think about like how you work, right? Like you get up in the morning, you like your peak productivity is might be around 11, you slow down for lunch a little bit, and then you pick back up, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then you wind down for the day. Threat actors the same way. And so we have a bimodal distribution around the center of the day for the threat actor. So you see, like we say, okay, well, which days of the week are you working based on like where you are and what hours are you going to be working? And so you can actually find all of that in the data if you decide to like find all the adversary activity and like graph it in a way.
Wow. That's cool.
So here you see all the details about, the file names that the threat actor is going to use to phish, the subjects that the threat actor is going to use, the delivery mechanisms, the discovery commands they're going to use when they compromise a user, and then even down to like credential access, impact, how they're going to like what ransom note they're going to drop. And so we do a little bit of TLC on this, right? We'll like massage a little bit, get it to the final state. But this is essentially the base of what we take every single time. We'll feed that into the engine, generate our data, and then we'll have one of our volunteers make all the questions and really try to guide the user through the investigation. And so the difference, Joe, right? You were saying the difference between the easy module and the hard module. Greg, what's the difference between easy and the hard modules?
Yeah, in the easy modules, we're going to ask you a ton of questions, right? Like we want to give you a step for every step along the way, from start to finish. As you start getting to those final challenges, we're not going to ask you very many questions, and the questions are going to be super open-ended, right? So instead of like, which user did this email address target on Tuesday? It's going to be like, what IP was the user's account compromised from?
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
nice.
so if you play the modules in order, right? As you start to build those skills, you're gonna know what questions to ask. You're gonna understand all those steps that come between, even if we're not explicitly asking you. And that's really the goal, right? Because like in a real investigation, no one's handing you a sheet of questions. You got to figure out both the question and how to answer it. And so that's what we're trying to teach you.
Now, could you eventually scale the AI bot to be able to also generate the questions instead of having to have the volunteer write them? Is there, is that part of the roadmap to make the modules build faster?
I was actually working on this weekend.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. That's something that we're working on. It's not perfect yet, but we're trying to figure out how to, since we control the data generation, we're trying to figure out how to feed it enough like key details. But we also have to teach it like our method of like asking the questions. So we essentially have to teach it how to pivot, right? And say, hey, this is how our data looks. These are the pivots that you can make so that it can like make those sequential orders. But that's something that we can do. And that's something that we're excited to learn. I mean, the fun part is the AI is getting better as we're doing all this. The AI wasn't this good when we started, and it's kind of gotten better as we've grown, which has been super cool to see. So we're kind of on the cutting edge of figuring out like, new AI thing comes out today. How can we figure out how to use that to make ourselves more efficient? Especially because again, we're doing this on volunteer time. So we don't have a full like, we got like, 3-4 hours after work to do this. I got to figure out how I get the most bang for my buck for whatever I do. So we got to figure out how to be more efficient in that way.
Okay, I have one question. some major tech companies sometimes name threat actors after certain things, like maybe it was on table of elements and then it changes to like storm systems. Like what any inside scoop on like why the table of element kind of ended and the new one started? I'd love to hear if there's a story behind. I've always wondered.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a certain case, the reason that happened is because they were running out of elements,
Okay.
right? And so,
Okay.
as more threat actors are created, you're gonna run out of elements eventually.
Okay. All right.
And the idea there is that you want to create a system that is more scalable,
Okay.
more flexible, that also lets users know, what they're looking at as opposed to guessing on the element.
Yeah.
That was the idea. Different people, of course, have different emotions on it. I think that was a very controversial one, both internally and externally, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are a lot of tweets thrown around on that one. There are a lot of jokes thrown around with that one. So
Yeah. No, I was curious about the inside baseball. That's always, fun to know those kind of stories, right? But well, I know we're kind of at time. Just want to thank you both so much for coming on. We'd love to have you on the show again, especially as Larry kind of continues his journey and also for us to follow the path of KC7. But
Yes.
yeah, this has been really enlightening. And for all the listeners out there, there's also an incredible Discord channel. So if you get stuck, I have been stuck many times too. You're not alone.
I am stuck
I've
right
been,
now on one
yeah,
question.
100%. So Discord's there. Post questions. Larry and I will be on there helping too. But yeah, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much, Joe. I
Thanks for
really
having
appreciate
us.
it. Thank you so
So
much for
thank
having
you
me.
guys. Yeah, thank you guys a bunch, and good luck in your adventures. And we will be interviewing you guys again, and hopefully, I'm up a few levels. I don't know if I catch Joe, but but
Yeah.
I
And
will
Larry,
be.
you said you guys are in the Discord channel, right? Have you ever seen a guy named Jibba_Jibba responding to
I
things
think
in
so.
Discord?
I
I
have.
think I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. So the Jibba, right, is actually a watch repair dude in LA.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we call him Jibby. He heard about KC7 at a Sans talk that I did. So I literally was like on stage, very early days. Scoreboard was crashing. I was like, all right, y'all check out this thing called KC7. He played through it. And he was like, this is kind of interesting. And he started going hard on KC7 for about a year and a half. And he got so good that he completed the entire thing. And he was just like asking for more. So we're like, all right, you can't compete anymore. You get to make the challenges now. And he's on there and he's had the full cycle. Like he's like the most helpful person. He's just helping everybody out. He's always looking for like ways to like learn more, how to contribute. And Larry, I said it was similar to your story because he comes from a completely different background. And I think you guys would really enjoy talking to him and his journey.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you
and
should have him on. We should have him on the show. That'd be
yeah,
awesome.
like
Definitely bring him on. He's amazing.
yeah,
okay.
I have one question before we go.
yeah.
So, have you guys receiving like a lot of thank you from people in their careers after you guys created this game? Like people that have learned KQL language a lot more.
Yeah, I
Have
mean,
you guys received a lot of
we've
a lot of
had
feedback?
so many of those from the beginning. And I think, we've had like, different scales of those. We've had like, for students in school, so many who come up to us afterwards and they say, hey, I did not know this was a thing you could do, and I want to like change my career to that. And we've had so many of those experiences. We've had so many people say like, I finally get it. Even within our own teams at work, we've had people who've used this and then like all of a sudden they went from like being scared of touching the data to like getting their hands wet and being like, all right, like this is not so scary anymore. I'm gonna get there. And then even on the other end, right, like Jibby, right, he went from not being in tech at all to, getting multiple interviews and just like wowing and blowing the minds of the people that he's interviewing with. I think people are always like shocked when we talk about his background because like unless he actually tells you, you would never know it, right? You would imagine like he's been working in tech for about 4, 5, 6 years when he's like, no, he's just been playing KC7 for about a year and a half.
Wow.
Oh, wow,
Incredible.
crazy.
That's the greatest testimony to what you guys have built, being able to help
exactly.
that quickly.
Yeah. And the best part I would say
you
is
guys
just,
had KC7 and I wouldn't have to go to school.
Yeah.
No, but I'm glad I did.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say the best part of this is the community that we found, right? Like KC7 is not just about Greg and I. I mean, there are so many volunteers who are working day in, day out to make this happen. I mean, if you look in the Discord, Greg and I aren't saying anything. It's the people who are really supporting and encouraging each other. We've had so many people in the community really like put their neck out and like really make a bet on us, including you, Joe, like really saying, hey, this is something that could help someone else. So I'm gonna put, you know, my neck on the line to support this thing because it could help somebody else. And I think that is the spirit of KC7. It's about, you know, putting someone else first. Like, you know, I didn't get to where I am because Simeon is so great. I got to where I am because somebody gave me a chance. And so how can I make sure I give a chance to the next person to help pull them along? I think that's the whole point of the thing that we're doing here.
That's so good. We're totally behind you. We can't wait to see the future and what you guys are building. So, man, thank you again for being here with us, and have an awesome weekend.
Yeah, we're so excited. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you. All right,
take care. Thank you so much, Larry. Take care.
You guys. Take care.
Bye.